Hello and welcome to Tech24. I'm Annelise Borges. Coming up in today's program, a coding school for France. 42 opens its doors in November, and we take a look at the final stages of the admission process. And in Test 24, we check out the new Ricoh's Theta, a camera for fully spherical images. But before we get to these stories, according to a study released last week by the Pew Research Center's Internet Project, some 15% of American adults do not use the Internet. Web penetration is the topic of today's Figure of the Week, brought to you by Le Journal du Net.
Despite nearly 3 billion global users, there's still a lot of people not connecting to the internet around the world. In 2012, 15% of French people had never used the internet. This rate is comparable to those observed in Germany, the UK, or even in the US. Among the most developed European countries, Italy and Portugal have the largest numbers of people who've never had access to the internet. More than 1 out of 3 don't go online, a rate that is equivalent to that of France in 2007.
42 is a tuition-free developer school, the first of its kind in France. Founded by French superstar entrepreneur Xavier Niel, the school will offer no state-recognized diploma, and applicants need no formal qualifications. But the admission process, which started in March and is now in its final stages, looks like no summer camp.
This could be one of the future geniuses of digital technology. It's 3 p.m. and students who've worked all night are about to get up. The location is School 42, an establishment founded by French tech entrepreneur Xavier Niel. For 1 month, these candidates for enrolment undergo exams. Some have decided to live on site for the duration of this very special immersion.
Here are my things: a blanket, a bath towel, a sleeping bag. We're here for a month. We bring everything we have, food and all. It's a big holiday camp, but it's not easy.
Initially selected by means of simple logic tests, all the candidates for 1 month will produce computer code, or in some cases learn to code. They come from all walks of life. Some have never seen an IT program before.
I've never coded before. It's a bit of a struggle to follow, but I'm keeping afloat.
There are no classes and no teachers here, just an apprenticeship by experience. Today's test: design a program that can solve a Sudoku puzzle.
They said they searched on the internet, which is what we expected. Our intention isn't to give them the answer, but for them to look for it themselves. We're here to give them advice. We're not here to teach them things, but to bring things to life.
We learn loads in a very short time. Just on the strength of what I've done in these 2 weeks, I've received a job offer, even though 2 weeks ago I'd never coded in my life.
This young man, a gardener by trade, has taken holidays from work to try his luck.
I'm not doing this for pleasure. I'm doing it because it's really for me.
Like him, most people here have no college degree, something that Nicolas Sadirac, one of the school's founders, says is an asset.
The traditional education system emphasizes certain values that are essentially discipline and fitting into the norm. We need the very opposite. We need diverse, innovative, creative people, because diversity gives a wealth of new ideas.
In 2 weeks' time, almost 900 students will make up the first year's intake. Education at School 42 is free and lasts 3 years, at the end of which students will get no degree, but are almost certain of finding a job.
And Marc Edwards joins me now. Marc, the man behind this initiative, Xavier Niel, has said, I quote, "The French education system isn't working," unquote. But France already trains some 16,000 computer engineers every year. So why the fuss about 42?
Well, to be honest, Annelise, I think there's an element of the sort of novelty factor, if you will, and the entrepreneurial philanthropy behind it. As we've talked about, Xavier Niel, a tech giant innovator who doesn't mind taking on the big corporations. You know, let's not forget he brought Free Mobile to the company Free Mobile here to France, and who give really very, very reduced prices in terms of broadband. On top of that, we do have the aspect of the people people who are being chosen or who will be chosen will come from sort of disadvantaged backgrounds, from the banlieue, from people who don't really fit into the standard mould of the education system in France. On top of that, rote learning above is not going to be the way they do it. It's going to be self-learning and self-teaching, which is a fantastic way to go about it.
And not long ago, we spoke in this show about Estonia being a reference for other countries in how it integrates computer programming into school curriculum. But that doesn't happen everywhere, right, Marc? We see that the private sector is still behind many initiatives like this School 42, for example.
Well, you know, we looked at Estonia. They do have it. There's been a lot of progressive changes in the education system where they are introducing coding and computer science into sort of course, part of the core curriculum. Countries such as India, South Korea, New Zealand. But then, funnily enough, powerhouses of Europe, such as Germany, are actually very opposed with the measure. The head of the teachers' union basically saying, what's the point of knowing how a typewriter works? All you need to know is how to use it. So, you know, those two sides. But during my time, I spent some time working for a management consulting firm, and they made it, however your education was, you needed to go to coding school for at least a month to learn just the basics, and it really does help. So from that point of view, I think it's a positive movement.
Now, good news also coming from the UK, Marc, where the final version of the new national curriculum, published in July, says that primary school children as young as 5 will be taught how to create very simple computer programs. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as well.
Fantastic for the future of British education. I wish I'd had that chance.
All right, thanks for that, Marc. We're going to have to move on now. Up next, Test 24. There's a number of smartphone apps out there that take 360-degree images, but Ricoh's new Theta camera is actually a lot cooler than that. Instead of stitching together panoramas and spinning around in circles to capture your entire surroundings, Theta has 2 opposite-facing cameras that capture fully spherical images. Marc has tested for us. Marc, what did you think?
Annelise, big fan of things that are small and compact, and that's what you get with the Theta camera here. 4 GB of internal memory, so you can store around 1,200 images. The battery lasts roughly around 200 images. You've got a USB port to upload, download. It's all done wirelessly, so that's great. And you know, you did mention smartphone apps, and anyone who's got an iPhone with trying to make the sort of panoramic images know how much of a faff, very slowly trying to go across and take it. This, easy, 1 click, 1 go. Here's an image that we took earlier on. The application, very, very simple. As I said, 1 click and you've got a 360-degree image of us messing around here in the studio earlier on. You know, big fan of that. Very, very useful, particularly potentially for, you know, in terms of hotels that want to show the room 360 degrees and estate agents and that sort of thing. Pretty useful.
For you renting out your apartment at Airbnb, for example, as well. It's out this week and it's priced at €399. That's quite expensive for a gizmo in sorts. Would you buy it for yourself?
I would if I had €399 to spare, which unfortunately I don't. But I really think it's probably a slightly rich man's toy because, yes, professionals who buy the same type of gadget will pay roughly 6,000 to 7,000 for the same thing. That's what it used to be. But ultimately, I think it's priced out too expensive.
How did you rate it then?
Design, beautiful. 9 out of 10, as I said. I love the old compact style. I love the way it feels in the hand and how easy it is to use. Again, high note with a 7 out of 10. Not great value for money. You're not going to find many people spending €400 on this camera. Overall, a good device, but as I said, more or less for people with a bit of spare cash running around.
Thanks for that, Marc, and thank you for watching this edition of Tech24. Don't forget, you can get in touch via Facebook or on Twitter. Our hashtag is Tech24. We leave you today with images of what the Basilica Sagrada Familia will look like in 2026. Antoni Gaudi's masterpiece has been under construction for more than a century. The architects responsible for finishing the church published a video animation of what the Sagrada Familia will be like in 13 years when completed. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.